This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It does not provide professional, legal, medical, financial, or other advice. Opinions from hosts or guests are their own, and not endorsements. Listeners should seek qualified professionals for personal decisions, and we disclaim liability for any actions taken based on this content.
Hi everybody, welcome back. This is episode 2. So today we'll be discussing about
Mahashivaratri today till tomorrow. So it is such a great occasion to be recording in such a auspicious time, and so we have decided that this week's topic will be centered around Shiva and the auspiciousness of Mahashivaratri. So luckily we have Skanda, who is well versed with a bit of the Shiva Puran here, and so we'll be doing a form of Q&A with Skanda to understand a bit more around why we have this festival, how we can celebrate it for those who haven't celebrated it before, and just a bit more about Shiva's Mahima. So I'll give the floor to you, Skanda.
No worries. Hi guys, I'm Skanda. I'm pretty well versed, I guess, like David said. More than that, I'm an aficionado of the Sanatana framework and its, I guess, many Puranas, many lessons we can learn from them, as well as I myself am a great bhakta of Shiva. I consider him my Ishta Devata, to be fair. So yeah, guys, you can shoot.
Yes,
what would you like to know?
There's, I think, a lot of questions around Shivaratri and Shiva. But just before we even tackle any of the more complicated, convoluted questions, I think it's very important for us to understand where this festival originates from. Like, where does Mahashivaratri come around from? I remember it was not too long ago when I first discovered there was something called Mahashivaratri. So from my understanding is Shivaratri happens based on the lunar patterns, right? So one day of the lunar pattern is considered the Shivaratri. Don't know exactly which moon phase, but that's considered the Shivaratri. And then Mahashivaratri happens once a year. So Skanda, if you could just explain, why do we have this Mahashivaratri? Where does it originate from? Does the Purans mention anything around this?
So from what I gather, Mahashivaratri, you're right in saying that there is a Shivaratri every waning phase of the moon. Okay? And the Mahashivaratri lies on the beginning of that lunar year. So right now, a lot of my co-workers are celebrating Lunar New Year because it just occurred, right? So it's the beginning of the Lunar New Year, and around that time is when Mahashivaratri occurs. It's not a coincidence of sorts, because the great night of Shivaratri, they call it Mahashivaratri, you can say, is nothing but the Lunar New Year. So it's the Chaturdashi, basically, Chaturdashi to the Amavasya during the Krishna Paksha, obviously. So it's waning, so it's going to become a new moon. On that new moon day is the Mahashivaratri.
Right.
Okay? On the Amavasya of, they say in Puranas, it says Magha Amavasya. Magha or Phalguna.
Right.
So
that's very interesting.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to see that this has like a realistic aspect to it in terms of not just a tale, and it demonstrates a key point of an annual year in terms of timekeeping, right? But I think our audience is, and myself included, I'm keen to know what is the Puranic story or the mythological story that is provided in Shiv Puran or in any other Purans that derives the story of how we got this festival and its importance.
Basically, the legend is that well, this is the day on which Shiva and Parvati were married.
Oh wow. Okay.
So
I did not
yeah.
know that.
Okay,
So I
interesting.
mean, there are many legends
Mm.
surrounding it, but they say on one of so right after his marriage to Parvati, they say he danced the Tandavam.
Right.
Okay, so that's
Mm.
one of the other legends, and it says that one of the other legends was also this is the day upon which Shiva emerged as a light of or a pillar of fire. And I'm not sure if you guys know the story of how or why Shiva is known as Ananta and Anādi. So he's known as those names, which means one who has no beginning nor end. So he's
Right.
known by these names because long ago, when there was a dispute about which god was supreme between Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh,
Yeah.
so they were all quarreling, and out of nowhere, Shiva sort of changed his form into an infinite pillar of fire, and he challenged the other gods to find his ends, the end of the fire, the pillar of fire. So Brahma sort of ascended upwards, tried to find the top end, and Narayana, in the form of Varaha, changed into Varaha and sort of dug into the earth to find the bottom. And after a while, Narayana realized there's no end to this fire of pillar, so he humbly bowed, and he sort of not gave up, but he realized the mahima, the mahatvam of the form that Shiva had taken. However, Brahma, he actually lied, saying that he had found the end of that pillar.
Right.
And Shiva was furious that Brahma would lie. So Shiva actually lopped off one of Brahma's heads.
Oh wow.
So originally, the story was that Brahma actually had 5 heads. So there was 4 on each side and then one facing
And one at the top. Oh, okay. Right.
So Shiva with his Trishula, he actually chopped off that one head.
Right. I think
And
is it correct for me to assume that this is also the same story where we originate the reason why Brahma is not worshipped in a physical form?
that yes, I believe so. Yes. So he was
So I think it
cursed
was
by
the
Shiva
curse.
himself.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
That you would not be worshipped because you lied,
Lying.
because of your
Right. Right.
I have a question relating back to Mahashivaratri and its origins. It is said that like Mahashivaratri happened when Shiva drank the halahala.
Yes, that's another legend. So when he drank the halahala poison, everyone knows the story. Those devas and asuras were churning the ocean for amritam. They were using Vasuki as the sort of rope to churn them, using the Mandara mountain, and from that produced so much poison known as hala, and it was, I guess, poisoning everything that it touched. So Shiva drank it all, and obviously that's where he gets his epithet known as Neelkanth. Those that know. So yes, that is another legend surrounding Mahashivaratri. We unfortunately we're not sure if, and we can't corroborate whether all of these happened on that exact same day.
Of course.
Obviously, we weren't there, so we don't have the first-hand sources of knowledge. However, because we've only been told so. So
I think that's a debate for another time, eh?
That's definitely for another time. But we can revel in the significance of these events, and it sort of adds to the personality of Mahadeva, what all he's achieved, what all he stands for through these acts. So yeah.
I think the first example that you mentioned that's about how that was the day Shiva and Parvati were married. So I think that's a very significant part of why we celebrate Mahashivaratri. So if I could just get you to elaborate on that, because I'm not too much aware of the marriage, the story behind how the marriage between Parvati and Shiva came about. I do know a bit more generic. A lot of our audience members may not know any part of the story, or a little bit like me. So what I'm aware of is Parvati was a devout bhakta of Shiva.
Yep.
And back in the time, or as long as Puranic time was concerned, it was where it was not uncommon for people to marry their daughters to gods or deities.
Yes.
And so she had decided upon her mind that she would marry Shiv and only Shiv, and so she worshipped relentlessly with that goal or ambition in her mind, that my life is devoted to my husband, my god, Shiva. However, I think the parents weren't too happy with this, considering Shiva wasn't the conventional god, given that he is I forgot the word, but Digambara, literally the one
Yes.
who's covered in the directions, meaning he has no clothes. He's covered in bhasma, carries, lives in a cemetery, or it is essentially known by some of these descriptors. And so he's not one compared to the conventional god. Let's say we look at Narayan, who has Lakshmi by his side, who's covered in gold, has weaponry, has lotus and all this beauty, and then we have the one who has renunciated everything and has matted hair, right? So it's a very stark opposite. And so why did I would say, firstly, what was the thing that Parvati saw that she fell in love with Shiva as her god, and why did her father not, why wasn't he happy with the marriage? And then what are the events that take place next in the story?
Okay. So good. So what we need from here is the context. So before she was Parvati, she was Sati.
Okay.
So Sati or Dakshayani. She was the daughter of Daksha Prajapati.
Yeah.
And even in that lifetime, she propitiated and worshipped Lord Shiva, and she wanted to become his husband. And she did.
Right.
I believe you guys know the story of this as well. So Daksha did not particularly like Shiva as his son-in-law.
Okay.
So when he conducted a yajna, he basically he neglected. So every devata is allotted a portion of the whatever
yajna.
is offered in the yajna.
Mm.
So
Right.
basically he organized one and did not invite Shiva, meaning that he did not intend to give that portion of the yajna.
Right.
He intended portion to Mahadeva, and this angered Mahadeva. So he decided not to go. Obviously, the point is, if you're not invited, you don't go. However, Sati, she really wanted to go. It's her father. Her father is conducting a yajna. She's going there out of, I guess, solidarity to her father, and she wanted to really go. So she went despite the warnings of Shiva himself. And Shiva himself said, if you have left, then you have left. It's like when we say, okay, if you go, you're not coming back. That sort of,
right.
He sort of not threatened, but it was that sort of
foreboding.
Not a foreboding of sort, but it was somewhere between a command and a request, to say the least.
Right.
It still,
and I guess it also represents a bit more disrespect in terms of going to an event that when you're uninvited, it looks bad, especially when your partner is not there.
Yeah, you can look, even social norms. You can learn from that event.
Yeah.
So she went, and she was disrespected by her own father at that yajna. She was not even, as she came in and welcomed her father did not even give a glance to her.
Oh, so no acknowledgement at all.
Not even, nothing. Sorry, I forgot to mention. So because Shiva wasn't going, he sent his attendant Nandi Keshwara, along to just to sort of protect Sati in case of anything. Right?
Okay.
And in that yajna, basically, Sati, because she had been so disrespected, she immolated herself. Okay.
Right.
And what that means is she didn't just jump in the fire. So what they call as the practice of sati is, back then, she was known as sati because she generated that fire from inside her body. But it's not
Right.
an external fire that she jumped into. That's what they call as johar or something the
Yeah.
Rajputs used to do.
Mm.
This was an internal sort of a tapas-like fire that it's a very intense fire that you generate from within. And she
And I
burned
guess it would
herself
be
alive,
fueled by rage as well out
of
of this
course,
disrespect.
of
Yeah.
course, right? And you need to understand someone like Sati, who had done years, thousands and thousands of, I mean, we're not sure about the like how time would have worked back then, but a significant period of tapasya just to achieve Mahadeva as her husband.
Right.
Right? She was hell bent on doing that. So she was definitely like able to generate that sort of body heat. So this happened, and after seeing that, Nandikeshwara went absolutely ballistic, and he started disrupting the yajna, very, I guess you can say, harming some of Daksha's attendants,
Right.
asking for nyaya. What's happened? Mahadeva will hear about this, right?
Yeah.
And he went back. When Shiva heard about this, he took one of the locks in his hair, sort of dashed it on the ground, and it sort of from it emerged Virabhadra.
But yeah.
So Virabhadra was a fierce form, like Kala Bhairava.
Mm.
Kala Bhairava was actually the form that Shiva took to lop off the head of Brahma.
Okay. Right.
Right? And we'll get back to that story because everything sort of ties in very nicely.
Okay. Right.
So after Virabhadra has emerged, he goes to that yajna and he kills Daksha. Right?
Oh. Okay.
And basically, I want to speed this up because I want to get to the Parvati part.
Yeah.
So after Sati has immolated herself, she's reborn as the daughter of Himavan, basically the daughter of the king of mountains. So Himavan is the king of the mountains.
Mhm.
And she's born as Parvata Raja Kumari. Parvata means mountain in
Oh,
Sanskritam. So that's why
right.
she's known as Parvati.
Parvati. Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's amazing.
Yeah. And that's why one of her names is also in the, if you look at Navaratri, the first name is Shailaputri.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
That means daughter of Shaila, which is the mountain.
Rock mountain. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's born, and again, she has not, she still has that devotion to Mahadeva.
Okay.
Even through Janmas, that sort
Connection
of,
is constant.
that connection is unsevered.
Yeah, and plus the prarabdha karma that she would have
course.
accumulated would have carried on.
Yeah. So even through many generations, she never forgot about that. And again, she started doing tapasya to attain Shiva.
You're right.
Okay. Now, Himavan, much like any other father, it's not that he didn't agree. He thought, I mean, to be honest, he did not object too much more, as opposed to her mother. The Parvati's mother was very on the fence about it. Obviously, we know all about the epithets of Shiva. Smashana Vasa.
Yeah.
He's wearing Bhasma Vibhushana.
Right.
Naga Bhushana. He's wearing snakes around his head. He's got 3 eyes. Right? What sort of person is this?
not the prettiest.
Exactly. So in today's world, would we give, if we had a daughter, would we give that daughter to someone looking like this, who's surrounded by bhutas, surrounded by ghosts and ganas that look very oddly shaped and oddly looking ganas, who lives in the mountains? Yeah. So it's not a very pretty sight. So the story goes is that in order to win the heart of his future parents-in-law, Shiva takes the form of Sundareshwara. Sundaramurti. So Sundara means he's very beautiful, handsome. So Shiva
Okay.
takes the form of Sundareshwara in
Mm.
order to convince them
He's the right choice.
that he's more beautiful than any other god. Forget
Okay.
Narayana, forget Kamadeva. No one
Mm.
is close to him. That's why
Right.
he's known as Kameshwara as well.
Mm.
Right? So he took that form and he happily married Parvati. And that's again the day of Mahashivaratri. That's one of the legends.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was very interesting. I was actually not aware of how the rebirth had taken place as Shailaputri, because I knew about Shailaputri as like when Garba season comes around.
Yeah.
And as Shakta tradition, I'm aware of the 9 forms of Parvati, but
Yeah.
I never knew that first form of Shailaputri comes after the Sati incident takes place.
Yeah.
So that was very unique. I do have one question, and I know it goes a bit away from Shiva himself, but I'm curious as to what it was that Parvati did. I would get years and years of tapasya, 100%, but what do we visualize this tapasya to be looking like? Was it her standing on one leg? How do we visualize that tapasya to be?
To be honest, I'm not exactly sure how we would visualize that tapasya.
Could you
Because
just
in
explain to
tapasya has
him?
many forms, right?
That is true.
Spreading the name of God, doing fasts. There's so many ways to do tapa.
Yes. So what we've been told at least is
Mm.
tapasya in that case meant just fixing your mind on the Lord and doing almost it's just pure dhyana
Right.
of that entity. So no puja, I mean possibly puja,
Mm.
but past the point they had attained a state where like if we look at the this is another epithet or this is another characteristic of Shiva that I wanted to touch on. Someone who was dear to every type of being in the world.
Okay.
So when we look at someone like Narayana, he tends to be favored by the devas.
Mm.
Right? Shiva is favored by everyone alike. Asuras know that only Shiva will grant them boons. Why? Because Shiva is known as the Karuna Nidhe. He's the one with the most compassion.
Right.
Right?
And he doesn't discriminate.
He doesn't discriminate.
He looks at the karma and he gives.
He looks at how much they've sacrificed.
Right.
He looks right. So which is why, and no one, and this is something my mom tells me as well. No one works harder than an asura.
Mm.
Yes, definitely.
Because they know that the odds are stacked against them. Devas have the amrita. They will never. It's very difficult to win in that Deva Asura Sangrama. So they have to work extra hard. Look at all of those asuras. Bhasma Asura, Taraka Asura. Right? Then Ravana. Look how much tapasya he would have had to do. And in that case, tapasya was pure devotion. So whether that was, it went through stages. So first it was not eating anything. What we do as a bhata on Ekadashi.
Right.
Then slowly they wean off that. Just water.
Mm.
Then slowly, just air. They're living on air.
Wow.
Okay? And then that even stops.
They stop breathing.
Have you seen those the people that are doing the tapasya in Himalayas? Very emaciated bodies. There's no sattva left. It's only the chit shakti that's keeping them alive.
Okay.
So slowly like that, Sati. I'm not saying that that's exactly what would have happened to her, but that level of dedication to that, yes, to that would have been the same. Would have been what she achieved.
Yeah. No, definitely.
I would like to ask a question here.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think are like the very common misconceptions about Shiva or Shaivism that you would like to clarify to our listeners?
Okay, so what we need to understand, Shiva is, I mean, like from a marketing perspective, he's at a risk of sounding very frank. or very crass, is the most I didn't want to say this, but the most badass devata ever.
Okay.
Yeah.
So someone who looks like straight out of it, like an alien movie, or like someone like that looks so vichitram,
Mm.
right? Virupakshaha, so, like trinetraha, Trishulayudha. Like even the weapons he carries, how he carries, what he carries the skull in his hand, right? Kapaladhari, they call him. He carries the skull of Brahma, right? And we often call him the destroyer, right?
Oh, actually, just to top you there. So that one
Yeah.
skull that he carries is actually the skull of Brahma, the one that he chopped off.
Yes.
Oh
He's
wow.
known as
Okay.
Vidhi Kapala Trishuladhara. He's carrying the
Right.
Trishula as well as Vidhi Kapala.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. No, please
So
continue. Sorry.
where was I? So he's often given this very not dastardly, but like a very the portrayal of someone who's very often in
Detached.
anger, very
Odd,
mimical,
you could
like
say.
not odd, but what we need to understand is he can take any form he wants.
Mm.
Okay, and the way we view him is how we want to view him.
Correct.
Okay, so to Markandeya, everyone knows about Markandeya.
Right.
Markandeya did not envisage Shiva with all those like bhayankara attributes.
Mhm.
Okay, he felt very safe with that devata. He felt a very intimate connection. So only Mahadeva could protect him from Yama. For him, Yama the Dutas were the evil beings
Right.
from which he needed the protection. Right.
Mm.
So what we consider as whatever his actions are, we know that his Tandava is capable of creation, sustenance, as well as destruction.
Correct.
He's only given that of the destructor or the transformer of whatever we'd like to say because of circumstance. Okay, because that's the purpose for which he's been molded. The purpose for which he takes on all of these ayudhams and these epithets and whatever he does. Right? It's to sort of reinforce that notion. However, he can take any form of his choice. That's the point.
Of course.
And there are so many tales where he's been as compassionate as Narayana and then as fierce as Virabhadra, the next
Right.
instance.
Right.
It's very yeah.
I
It's
think
up
a
to
very
that's true. Yeah. Go ahead.
I think a very interesting, like something I've heard from my friends who also have heard tales of Shiva is there's people who would have in Purans who are noted to have spent their entire lives to work to get a glimpse of God, particularly of their Ishtadevta, meaning which would be Shiva. Meanwhile, there's other Sant and Pandits who have done very little in their life, and yet they were able to please Shiva very easily. How would you kind of justify this discrepancy that comes around? Now, I don't have exact examples, but there's many cases. For example,
yeah.
Arjun was, even though Arjun we know was on the good side, he was on the side of Dharma. One easy way to justify this was the fact that Krishna, even Shiva must know that Krishna, Narayan, was on the side of Arjun, was supporting him to ensure that Dharma was in the right hands in that yuga. Even knowing that when Arjun was doing on the reminder or on the command of Vyas Muni, Vyas Rishi, that he should not waste his time in the forest sitting around, but rather in hard work to achieve the Pashupatastra and other astras that will be helpful in the possibly future war to come, right?
Yeah.
At that time, we know that Shiva, even though Arjuna was doing all this tapasya, Shiva wanted to make sure that this Pashupatastra wasn't going in the wrong hands. And so he personally came down to ensure, to take a test, a physical test of Arjun's justice mind, or whether he was justice seeking or not, because it is such a deadly weapon. Now, on the other hand, we know cases where he would have given it away very easily to some asuras, right?
Yes.
And so why does this imbalance come around, or what's your perspective on it?
Yes. To be fair, I have not thought too much about this. It's an interesting question. Yeah. So to deliberate on this, I'd say that Arjuna's at the height of sadhana comes realization of nirahankara and nirmama.
Right.
So when those asuras had done their tapasya, it was one would assume that those feelings of nirahankara and nirmama would have left. One would assume, right?
I mean,
However,
wouldn't they have come in instead of left? Like ahankara would have gone and nirahankara would have entered. Is that correct?
Would have, yes. So they would have entered nirahankara, or they would have been nirahankara and nirmama at that stage, having done the tapasya and attained the vision of the divine.
Right.
At that point. So Arjuna specifically did not do any tapasya.
Okay.
He actually did do tapasya. But so I think in Mahabharata it states he did tapasya first to Indra.
Okay.
Because he wanted
Indra.
And Indra directed, no, there is someone higher than me.
Right. Okay.
Right? Like HR management, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Arjuna did do the tapasya. And again, you're asking why did Shiva test Arjuna and not the other ones like Bhasmasura and
right. Yes.
With Bhasmasura, he knows the point is that Arjuna is always tested because he's on the good side. What we need to understand is the good will always be tested and will always come out triumphant. The bad are known to be bad by the good.
Right.
Okay. And Shiva knows there's no point testing Bhasmasura.
Okay.
Because he will always take the easy way out. Okay. And Shiva had already known earlier how his death will come about. He will have known at some point after giving that boon. Right? Which is why there's always that tiny loophole. Even when Brahma gives a vardhan, especially when Hiranyakashipu, not outside, not inside, not by something living or whatever. All of these conditions, despite that, there's always a loophole.
The technicality.
Right? So knowing the true nature of that individual is very important. And that's where Shiva and Brahma, they do know. They do know the true nature of that individual. And based on that, they test appropriately. Or they test or don't test.
Okay. Right.
So
no, that's
my
a good point.
At least.
I think that's a valid point there, 100%. That I think they would, like Shiva would know that, given that they're Asuric or from an Asur roots, that would never leave them as like a Prakriti, right? And
not that they're not capable of that change, right? We know that Prahalada was born of an Asura, but again, you have to look at there are many factors in this as well, right? He's of Asura nature. He's not of Asura nature.
Right.
Despite being born there, he's not of Asura nature because of the Narayana mantra that was given as Upadesha to him by Narada himself.
Yeah.
Right? And in the womb, he had listened to only Om Namo Narayanaya. right? So that seed was enough.
To transform his prakriti.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Of course. Now, I think we have looked into, I think, Shiv and his mythology and the stories around him, the significance of Mahashivaratri. I think now we want to touch upon the more ritualistic side and the celebrations of this festival. So what I think would be a great way to start kind of this section of the podcast is, how do we all celebrate Shivaratri, particularly Mahashivaratri, at our own houses? And I'm just curious because we all come from varying parts of India at varying stages of life, at varying levels of knowledge in terms of Sanatan Dharma and Vedic Samskriti. So I'm just curious to see what we all celebrated in what form. And then I would like to hear, Skanda, your perspective in terms of how someone who is unfamiliar with Shivaratri and someone who is very new to Sanatan Dharma, how can he celebrate this auspicious day uniquely? Because we all may be doing prayer. For someone who may not be doing prayer, it may be the day that they pray to Shiva. But for someone who is very regularly does prayer, it's nothing unique. There's usually, we associate rituals with major festivals. So what would be some small ritual that could be the starting steps for people on this journey? But let's actually go one step before that and just share what we all do to celebrate, as I'm very curious. Vid, do you want to start off?
Yeah, so I come from Maharashtra. So
Mm.
for us, our family, our Ishta Devata is Dattatreya. So as you know, which is a combination of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. So for us, the importance in Maharashtra is that it's one of the strongest Dattatreya traditions in India. So certain individuals or certain pilgrimages go to Narsabhachiwadi, which is a very famous place. Some also do parikrama around the Audumbar tree. Some also go to Gangapur, which is the origin place of Dattatreya. And some also think of and recite shlokas or verses written by saints such as Narasimha Saraswati, Swami Samartha as well. And in Maharashtra, how we celebrate Mahashivaratri is we have night-long jagarans and the classic abhisheks, fasting, and temple visits at midnight, where the major temples are Triambakeshwar, Bhima Shankar, and Girineshwar.
Girineshwar, yeah.
Skanda, do you want to go next?
No, you please go ahead first.
Okay, no worries. So personally, this is not something, not a family tradition, but personally, I like to celebrate Mahashivaratri by challenging myself with the fast. So I do like to go from the previous night to the next night and to the morning after. No food, no water. And so this isn't, again, people based on their own levels, usually in the family, have their own level of fast. So for people who can eat, but there's very limited things that they prefer to eat. In Gujarat, they call it farari food. So I don't know the exact criteria, but it's generally known in the Gujarati family what that is classified as. Additionally, what I usually like to do is Shivaratri is commonly celebrated in all of India by staying awake the night. And there happens to be very scientific reasons around this. Now, unfortunately, because we're in the southern hemisphere in Australia, these same benefits don't correlate. But I still see it as a very important thing, as it is one night where you stay up not for personal celebrations or not for your own time, but to dedicate to something. So to use that time effectively to maybe read something spiritual, to do mala that you probably wouldn't be doing on a regular basis. And that this is also one of the main times a year where I do abhishekam to Shiva and do Shiv Mahimna Stotra.
Okay. So personally, what I do on Shivaratri, basically it starts with a simple, obviously fasting is part of the tradition. So fasting, what we call nirjalam, obviously without water if you can. If not, there's the popular one is the palaharam one, only eating fruits and nothing else for the fast. Then there's also obviously doing the puja to Shiva, very important, along with the abhishekam. So abhishekam with milk, then offering of flowers, offering of what we say, bilva dala. So, so and also while doing that, saying bilvashtakam. So and our seers, ancient seers, have written a shloka for every single part of the process that we like to say. So like that, there will be small shlokas to say in each and every interval, and knowing those, you understand the significance and sort of how they envisioned each night to run. And obviously it varies from tradition to tradition, but I found that very interesting, and I found it very relieving to know that they've sort of given us a footprint to follow, or a blueprint to follow, sorry.
Right.
So it helps us understand their perspective and how it helped them envision the Lord, and how it can help us as well, empower us as well. So that's the puja. Then obviously Shiva stotras, as many as you can, and this is through the jagaran. So throughout the entire night, just any shlokas of Shiva, Shiva Tandava Stotra, Shiva Manasa Puja, Shiva Mahimna Stotra. Then some traditions also recite shlokas or stories from the Shiva Purana and Linga Purana, talking about the mahima of Shiva and his exploits, various exploits, how he earned his different names. And yeah, so those are the main takeaways of at least what I do. And those are some of the things that most people can that sort of don't know about Shivaratri too much. They can sort of look at these aspects and try them out as well. So first one I'd say is a fast, right? And fast is not just a religious whim, let's say, that we do. Think of it as a detox, right? And obviously we know about Ekadashi, so that's a sort of bi-weekly detox that most people are used to in the Sanatani tradition, and that has very good consequences for your digestive system. Helps regulate it pretty well. So yeah, same I guess no issue in being able to do that if you can. And the next part I'd say is a simple shloka learning, or just hearing the shlokas is enough. Okay, even listening to the stories of those Linga Purana or Shiva Purana, hearing about those stories is enough. They say shlokas from they say patati chet partayati chet. Whether you're reading it or whether it's being read to you is not the problem. The punyam will still you'll still attain the punyam,
right,
or whatever is described in the shloka. Each shloka has a different sort of punyam, or whatever, a different sort of outcome it will give to those who read it or hear it. So the shlokas that of our seers are designed in such a way to help us realize the greatness, the variegated greatness of that Lord in a variety of scenarios. So it won't just be about one specific. Sometimes it might just be about one specific, but it will never be one aspect. It's always a multifaceted experience, you can say. Learning of a shloka, learning of a stotra, to say. So that's the second step I'd advise. Third, again, this is entirely up to you. The jagarana is, I don't know if you guys have done it. Have you guys stayed up all night for Shivaratri?
I have stayed up for a couple of years in the past, yes, and this year as well.
a blast. So Shivaratri, I think it's a good chance for you to be at a not to sound like a cliche, but to be at one with yourself, meaning that to really concentrate on the divine. So once all the stotras are finished, once you've done the abhishekam, once you've all the kathanam, I guess you can say, that's when you sit down, and in the peace of that ratri, you can practice dhyanam, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, right? We know the Panchakshari mantra. What we need to understand, there's no rules in terms of you have to do this and then this and then this. These are some guidelines that are set out by our seers back in the days, and we continue to do them because we see the divine however differently, or however we experience it differently. That same divine feeling we invoke within ourselves when we follow their footsteps. So this is a way that we can sort of feel the connection with Shiva, especially more than the other days, on Mahashivaratri. I hope that answers your question.
No, it definitely does, Kanda. I would just like to add one more question in this. I know there's very minute preferences that Shiva has, as all the deities have in Sanatana Dharma. Not that it's very strictly adhered to by most families. I don't think it's too big of a deal, but it does add kind of special touch into your connection with the deity when you're aware of these preferences. So I'm aware that Shiva prefers milk because of its cooling nature. So they say that it cools him because of the heat from the halahal poison that he has. So it raises his temperature, so it cools him down. Water is also something that Shiva likes. Bilva patra, as you mentioned there. Now that's something very difficult to get abroad. So I just wanted to know if there's any things that Shiva dislikes. So I am aware that certain colored flowers are something we don't offer to Shiva. Not too sure which color.
So from what I can, sorry, what colored flowers did you mention that we don't offer?
I'm not too sure exactly, but I do remember a Pandit telling me when we had a ritual at home, because of Adi Shankaracharya, we have the Panchayat and Puja where we worship the 5 main gods.
Yes.
So in that we offered flowers to each one in the Satyanarayan Katha, but to Shiva we specifically offered a flower not of a particular color, and the Pandit clarified that we don't offer this colored flower to Shiva. Is that something you're aware of, or any other restrictions that you want to clarify when you do any rituals?
There may be restrictions. Look, there may be restrictions again from I guess the belief systems vary based on who your acharya is, or who your tradition basically, and it may be true, and there may be a reasoning for that. So a lot of again, this is why there are the customs are so diverse, in that because in one area there'll be a legend stating this is how Mahadeva preferred it, and that's what we've been told. And then another region of Bharat will say, oh no, this is how we do it because our forefathers had experienced this from when they think Mahadeva. So it's not that there's no wrong and right, but this is how they've given, or this is how they've done it, and they've passed that on to their descendants and descendants. Okay, so from what I have been taught, humbly, Shiva prefers, they say, Akka Pushpa. So Akka Pushpa, I'm not exactly sure the scientific name or the genus name. Yeah. You'll have to search that up. But I think it's a white flower.
Okay.
So I'm not sure about. So that's what we offer, at least to Shiva, along with the Bilva Patra.
Right.
Okay, and in fact, my parents actually they had bilvas, as in silver bilvas, so
Okay.
silver cutouts of the bilvas. If we cannot obtain Bilva Patra, it's very difficult in Australia.
In Australia, yeah.
But yeah, if you can, obviously great. But if we can't, then we're just offering the silver bilva. So anything that we can get our hands on, basically.
Of
Okay.
course.
Any other restrictions you would that you wanted to know about? The flowers, I'm not too sure. Again.
Okay. Right. Of course.
So I mean,
I was curious about when you said prayer in the evening, what time is usually preferred, or is it post sunset, during sunset, or is there a certain time period that is ideal for prayer in the evening?
Shivaratri, praying in the evening, it's always from Sandhya Kala. From Sandhya Kala onwards.
Sunset. Okay.
So sunset, obviously, and then that Shivaratri will last all the way until the Brahma Muhurta Kala in the morning.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you shower again. So that is, yeah. Ratri means Ratri, right?
Night, yeah, of course.
Nighttime. So it's a night. Because we need to understand the Shiva is always going to be, there's always a connection with Shiva and moon. More than sun, the moon. That's why it's following lunar calendar, not the solar calendar.
Right.
Right? Why does he wear the Chandra on his head? It's not just, right? There's definitely more to that connection than meets the eye. Yeah?
Of course.
Right. So would you say there's a lot of layering involved with Shiva?
Yes. A lot of layers. Okay. Multifold personality.
No, of course. Any other questions that you have for Skandavid?
I have one question. I think this is just like a general question that I have is, the thing is that in today's world, or like in today's fast-paced world, what does Shiva represent? Would it be through a psychological lens or a spiritual lens? I'll leave that up to you, Skanda.
Again, this is what I was talking about before. So Shiva, if he can be anything, he can be viewed as anything.
True.
So you can view him as anyone you think, or anything. Shiva can be viewed as change. Shiva can be viewed as strength or steadfastness. He can be viewed as compassion. Right? And we've seen varieties of stories where he is given someone strength. He's given someone compassion. He has given someone the means to acquire something. So he's been all of these things. So whatever we want, he can be.
Right.
So I think that's the main takeaway from Shivaratri, and why we pray to Mahadeva is for this reason. Okay, so basically, we like to say that he's the destroyer, right? And a quirky sort of way to put it, a term on this is that nothing is truly destroyed. We know energy, right?
Yes.
Conservation of that goes the same with creation as well, I guess. But he's transforming energy, you can say, repurposing energy. Another, I guess, name that was given to me when I was on one of the tours in, I think, where did I go? Some architectural place in India with what was it called? Near Krishneshwar somewhere. Okay, so he said he's a discipliner.
Right.
He described Shiva as a discipliner, someone who disciplines others. So he thought of it not as destruction. He thought of it as bringing some sort of discipline. In Tamil we call it kattapadu. There's a sort of structure to life, and that's again we can view the strength or the resilience that I was talking about from that personality.
The control of
Okay.
chaos, you may say.
Yes, the control of chaos is interesting. But yes, why not? If he's creating the chaos, then obviously he can control the chaos.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And one last thing, I guess, before we wrap up this week's session, Skanda, is we looked at what we all do as ritualistic practices to celebrate Mahashivaratri. And you gave us guidelines in terms of how someone very fresh starting off in their spiritual journey or ritualistic and wants to get into ritualistic side of things. For them, you gave guidelines. Would there be any suggestions in terms of what shlokas, what stotras you would recommend for beginners? And then moving upwards to somewhat of the more complex, such as the Shiv Mahimna.
Yes.
What would you recommend here?
Very simple. So you could say Shiva Manasa Puja. Fairly, I mean, it's not difficult per se at the beginning, but you can start with shlokas like the Panchakshara Stotra, Shiva Panchakshara Stotra. So Nagendra Haraya Trilochanaya Bhasmangaragaya Maheshwaraya Nityaya Shuddhaya Digambaraya Tasmai Nakaraya Namah Shivaya. And the significance of that particular stotra. So it's like what we call a panchakam. So in Sanskritam, a panchakam means it's a set of 5 verses, right? Pancha meaning 5, panchakam, 5 verses, and each verse begins with the akshara of Namah Shivaya. So Nagendra Hayaraya starts with Na. Next one will start with Ma. Mandakini Salila Chandana
Right.
Charchitaya. So like that. So there's the reason we learn the shlokas is it's not just a whim. So there's a story behind them. There's a story behind why they're written. There's a story behind their greatness. So learning about that is the next step. And once we start with the easy ones, like that one, or even some of the harder ones, more the Vedic ones that are found in Shri Rudram, let's say, Trambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urva Rupamiva Bandhanan Gutyor Mukshi Amamritaat. Okay, so those ones. Sorry? Yeah?
It's called the Amrit, the mantra. Mrityunjaya mantra, right.
So this is the mantra that Markandeya used to propitiate Mahadeva as he was hugging that Shivalinga, right? So like that, there's an entire ocean. Okay, once you start, you'll never end. Okay, so but yeah, that's
definitely. We'll give the listeners the opportunity to do their own research. But your suggestion there of the Panchakshara mantra was very fascinating in terms of its lyrical structure, where it starts off with each letter of the Maha mantra that we have in Shaivism. Anything else we want to discuss, Vid, before we wrap up this week's?
I feel like this is a great segue into just saying a big thank you to Skanda for enlightening us with all these various
just sharing what little I have, what I've experienced and what I've learned from my gurus, and hopefully if this has done justice to them and given you guys some insight into Mahashivaratri.
Yeah. And just to finish off, if we could, Skanda, ask you to recite the Mrityunjaya mantra, and we'll all follow along in our minds, just to end off today's podcast.
Okay, sure. Om Trambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukaviva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyamamritaat.
Thank you, Skanda. And if any of our listeners have any further questions or anything they're curious about, please do reach out to us, leave something in the comments. We do appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you.